All right, let's talk about something that's absolutely foundational to finance. What is the point of all this securities regulation? It's like this invisible rule book that governs trillions of dollars. So let's dive in and make sense of it. So, have you ever stopped to wonder what actually stops the stock market from being a total free for all? A financial Wild West where anything goes and the person with the fastest draw wins. Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. It all comes down to one word: regulation. And we're going to break down exactly what that means. You see, it's easy to think of the market as just pure chaos, right? Tickers flashing, numbers flying. But underneath all that frantic buying and selling, there's a very deliberate framework, a set of rules that's designed to bring order and, more importantly, trust and stability to the whole system. And that right there is the absolute core of it. I mean, think about it. Without rules, trust just evaporates. Could you imagine investing your hard-earned money if you didn't trust the information you were getting, or if you thought the whole game was rigged? Of course not. It just wouldn't work. Regulation is the bedrock that all that trust is built on. Okay, so we get that we need rules. But how does this whole kind of complex world of regulation actually work? Well, the good news is you can pretty much boil it all down to three central goals. The way I like to think of them is as the three pillars of regulation. And what's so great about this framework is that nearly every single rule you'll ever encounter in the securities industry can be traced back to one of these three fundamental principles. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful way to understand the whole landscape. So what are they? Here we go. First, protecting investors. Second, making sure that markets are fair, orderly, and efficient. And third, helping businesses raise the money they need to grow, what's known as facilitating capital formation. Let's dig into each one of these. All right, pillar number one is all about you, the investor. Its main job really is to act as a shield. It's there to protect you from fraud, from deception, and all those other shady practices. And how does it do that? By basically forcing companies to be honest and transparent so that you get the accurate info you need to make smart decisions. Now, pillar number two is all about creating a level playing field. The whole point is to make sure the game isn't rigged. This means that prices should move based on genuine supply and demand, not because somebody has an illegal inside tip or is trying to manipulate things from behind the scenes. It's all about fairness. And that brings us to our third and final pillar, capital formation. Now, this might sound a little technical, but it is what makes the economy tick. Because when investors feel safe and confident, they're much more willing to invest their money. And that capital is what allows businesses to innovate, to build new factories, and ultimately to create jobs. It is literally the engine of economic growth, and it is all fueled by that trust. So, these three pillars make a lot of sense, right? But they didn't just appear out of thin air. No, they were born from a crisis that shook the entire world. And this quote just says it all. Before the 1930s, the market was, well, it was a mess. It was rife with manipulation and deception, and the catastrophic crash of 1929 ripped the cover off just how broken the system was, revealing all this widespread fraud and a total lack of transparency. It was a giant blinking sign that something had to change. And that change came, and it came swiftly. The 29 crash led directly to some landmark laws. First, the Securities Act of 1933, and then the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. These established the core rules about honesty and disclosure that we still rely on. And, this is huge, they also created the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, to act as the federal watchdog, the new sheriff in town to enforce these rules. So, who enforces all these rules today? Well, it's not just one group. It's better to think of it like a whole team of referees, where each one has a really specific job to do on the field. The key thing to get is that it's a multi-layered system. At the very top, you've got the big federal agencies like the SEC. Then, in the middle, you have what are called self-regulatory organizations, or SROs. FINRA is a big one you might have heard of. They're basically industry groups that police their own members. And then, you also have regulators at the state level. They all work together to keep things in order. Okay, so we've talked a lot about what regulation does. But to really get the full picture, it is just as important to understand what regulation is not designed to do. And honestly, this is where a lot of people get confused. And here is the critical distinction. Regulation's job is to make sure you're told the truth about the risks you're taking and that the market itself operates with integrity. Its job is not to guarantee you'll make a profit, and it's definitely not there to eliminate all risk. And that's the bottom line. No matter how many rules are in place, investing always involves risk. It has to. Regulation exists to make sure the game is fair, not to prevent you from ever losing. That risk is a fundamental part of how markets work. So to wrap it all up, I want to leave you with a really powerful tool. The next time you hear about a new financial law or some rule change, just ask yourself this one question. Which of the three pillars does this serve? Is it about protecting investors? Is it about making markets fair? Or is it about helping businesses raise capital? That simple question is your key to understanding the why behind almost every rule you'll ever come across.